What's up, everyone? It's Mr. Miller. So, we're going to get started talking today about Judaism as well as World War II. So, learning targets for the slides about Judaism are I can understand the basic ideas of Judaism. I can understand why people discriminate against Jews in past and in modern times. And for World War II, I can understand how and why World War II happened. I can understand important war terms. So, Judaism is a modern day religion that exists today still. It has 14.5 million followers worldwide. It is not as popular as Christianity or Islam, but it's still very popular around the world. So why is this important? We're starting our Holocaust unit. To be able to understand why and how the Holocaust happened, you need to be able to understand what it means to be Jewish. So Judaism is actually, the people that are called Jews now are actually an ethnic group called Hebrews that lived in parts of the Middle East. And if you see this map here where it's green, they kind of lived in this general area. This is by Saudi Arabia and Egypt, and like over here it would be where this mouse is would be Syria. That's not where it is, but kind of in that general area. The Hebrews came to this area, the Middle East, around the Fertile Crescent between 2000 and 1500 BC. So Judaism is the religion of the Hebrews. So this ethnic group of Hebrews, the religion that they created was called Judaism. It's the world's first religion that believed in only one God, which is monotheism. Up until this point, most historical records say like there's many gods. This one only has one God. It's the first of its kind. So it's very historically important. So the Jewish Bible traces the Hebrews back to a man named Abraham. Actually, Christians and Muslims can do that as well. It all starts off with this man named Abraham. Israelites, which are modern Jews, considered Abraham and his son Isaac to be the founders of the religion. So driven by famine, the Hebrews moved to Egypt, where they were forced to be slaves by the pharaohs, what the story goes. Moses led the Israelites out of Egypt in the journey called the Exodus. And this is all in the Old Testament of the Bible as well as the Jewish Bible as well. So God gave Moses the 10 Commandments, which stress the importance of life, self-control, and justice, which is important to them. And the Promised Land is this land that God promised to keep it as long as the Jews kept their end of the bargain up, which is in the Bible, and you can look it up later yourself if you really want to know more. And the idea is that modern day Israel is the promised land that God gave them. So that is their beliefs. Basic beliefs, most important for them is the 10 Commandments and following the Torah and the other texts. Religious Jews believe in justice and righteousness, doing what is right even when others are not, in obedience to the law. Not every single Jewish person, though, follows their religion to a T, just like how not all Christians do as well. So just keep that in mind, please. More basic beliefs are Jews believe there's only one God. This is the same God Christians and Muslims worship. God chose the Jews to be his chosen people, and that modern day Israel is their promised land, which we talked about. Jews believe Jesus is not the Son of God and that the real Son of God has not come yet. They're not saying Jesus is not important. They're just saying that like he was important, but he's not like a God. He's not like a holy Trinity person. He's just a normal man. Many, not all Jews believe in an afterlife. Many Jews believe when a person dies, they just relive memories of their life until Judgment Day, which will happen when the real Messiah comes to earth. Again, that's only some, not all. There's many Jews that do believe in some kind of afterlife. It just depends on which sect of Judaism you're in. The sacred text is the Torah. It has 5 books, and it's part of the Hebrew Bible. The Hebrew Bible is called the Old Testament, and the Christian Bible are the parts of the Bible are the prophets, the writing, and the Talmud. So what does it mean to eat kosher? A lot of people think of Jews as people that eat certain foods. Religious Jews eat only kosher foods, which in Hebrew means fit and proper and correct. So there's certain foods that can be and cannot be eaten. So foods that cannot be eaten, there are certain foods that cannot be eaten. There's certain foods that must be separated, and certification makes it easier to identify kosher foods. There are kosher foods at grocery stores. And why do Jews eat kosher food? Because it says to. There's not really a specific reason. It's just what it said. I'm going to go through this kind of fast. So there's 8 general rules that kosher meat would be like cattle, sheep, goats, deer, and bison, not kosher camel, hare, or pig. So they can't eat like pork products just like Muslims can't. Many animals that must be eaten, like birds and mammals, must be killed in accordance with the Jewish law. Animals people cannot eat animals that have died of natural causes or that were killed by other animals. So you can't like find a dead pigeon on the ground like I'm going to eat this. That would be gross. Or you can't be you see like a snake eating like a mouse and then eat the snake, because like that's kind of gross too. So animals must have no disease or flaws in the origins of the time of the slaughter. So you can't be like, oh, this cow died of like being sick, so I'm going to eat it. You shouldn't. Well, you shouldn't do that. Period, because that's gross. Three is all blood must be drained from the meat and poultry or boiled out before it is eaten. So that's a rule. Certain parts of permitted animals may not be eaten. Fruits and vegetables are permitted, but they must be inspected for bugs, which cannot be eaten if there's bugs on it, which that actually makes good sense when you think about it. Meat, like the flesh of birds and mammals, cannot be eaten with dairy. Fresh eggs, fruits, vegetables, and grains can be eaten with either meat or dairy. According to some views, fish may not be eaten with meat at all. Utensils, including pots and pans and other cooking surfaces that have come into contact with meat, may not be used with dairy and vice versa. Utensils that have come into contact with non-kosher food may not be used with kosher food. So, like, let's say that I have a Jewish friend and we were eating out together, and I had a hot dog and I cut up the hot dog and then I gave him the silverware. He couldn't eat the silverware because it touched a hot dog. So, um, yeah, grape products made by non-Jews may not be eaten. So, like, let's say if I'm a really strong practicing Jew and I go to like a winery somewhere and I just get a random bottle of wine, that would be like sinning. You can't have wine unless it's made by a person that is like a Jew. So, there are a few rules that are not universal, but that's kind of like the whole point of it. Jewish holidays. Big one is the Sabbath. And not really a holiday, but it's really important. We'll talk about later Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and Hanukkah. And as a disclaimer, Hanukkah is only big in some countries like America and Canada and Western countries. Hanukkah is actually one of the smallest holidays in um, Jewish society, which we'll get into in a second. The Sabbath is just like church on Sunday, except it is for the people of that believe in Judaism. They go to this place called the synagogue. It's a Jewish church on Saturdays. Traditional followers of Judaism do nothing from sundown on Friday to sundown on Saturday. Jewish days are measured in sunsets. It is a religious law that all practicing Jews go to synagogue to worship on the Sabbath. And there are different types of synagogues with different rules, just like there's different churches with different rules. Holy high days. The two biggest holidays is not Hanukkah at all. It's Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Rosh Hashanah is the Jewish New Year and typically happens in the fall months. Jews typically go to church during the holiday and reflect on their lives and how to make their year better. People eat apples and other sweet fruit to symbolize a sweet new year. So there's not a lot of presents involved. And Yom Kippur is a holiday that also happens in the fall. And really quick, just so you know, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur change every year. It's never ever the same time. And the reason for that being is it's based off the Jewish holy calendar. Like it's 2021 in our world, but if you're a practicing Jewish person, the religious calendar says the year I think is like 6 to 8,000. So it's a little bit different. Um, and anyway, Yom Kippur translated to English means Day of Atonement. So typically people do not go to work. People go to the synagogue and pray for forgiveness of their sins. Okay. Hanukkah takes place in November to December. That changes every year too, based on the Jewish calendar. It is a celebration of a miracle that happened in a synagogue during an ancient battle. For 8 days, menorahs, which is the candlestick holder, are lit to remember the miracle during the battle. Each night there's a special meal with family and friends, and games are played. Presents are only given out in certain Western countries, and the reason for that being is like when Jewish people came to like France, the United Kingdom, Canada, the United States, and all those other big countries where we have big Christmases, Jewish kids were like, how come Santa Claus doesn't come and visit me? How come I don't get presents on Christmas? And the Jewish parents are like, well, we don't really celebrate Christmas because we don't see Jesus Christ as important. So that was kind of unfair. So parents now just give their kids gifts. So yeah. Famous Jewish people. I don't know if you realize this, but there's a lot of famous Jewish people. And like Albert Einstein, Jesus, Moses, Charlie Puth, Zac Efron. I could go on and on and on. There's lots of famous Jewish people. Anti-Semitism is the hostility or prejudice against Jews. It's been going on for a long time. And three reasons why is because Jews were the first people to have their own religion with one God. Jews were blamed for killing Jesus, and Jews were stereotyped. And we will talk more about this in depth later, but it still happens today, unfortunately. So anyway, moving on to World War II. The Holocaust happens directly because of World War II. But to understand World War II, you have to understand the things that led up to World War II. Okay, so I'm giving you basic history. You're going to learn all of this in high school later, but it's so important. Okay, so in 1933, the National Socialist Party, which is the Nazi Party, led by Adolf Hitler, comes to power in Germany. People seem to think that Hitler just kind of popped up one day, became a king. He didn't. Actually, on the contrary, he was voted into office, just like any president would. The reason why he won is because his party, there was like 16 to 20 parties running, and he won the majority, which isn't a lot when you think about it. And Germany then starts to build an army in 1935, which he wasn't supposed to do after World War I. And in 1936, Germany invades this certain area of time. So then there was tension building in the Europe and the Far East. United States Congress passed 3 laws designed to keep the U.S. out of the war. Congress was not determined to be involved in a war, though. So the United States was like, yeah, whatever. We don't care about any of that. The Neutrality Acts of 1935 that the United States did not allow a shipment of American weapons to any countries at war. It did not distinguish between the good countries and the bad countries. And in 1936, it forbade, another law was passed that forbade any American loans to any country at war, did not distinguish between aggressors and victims. There was another one that gave 2 permanent pieces of foreign policy. It forbade Americans to go to other nations, and it could, it allowed the president to create goods of certain kinds. In 1937, Japan took over China, and then President Roosevelt issued a quarantine speech, and so it started to build up the war. So 1938, Hitler invades different countries. 1939, Germany invades the Soviet Union. Germany invades Poland, and Britain and France declare war. This is a lot, and then after time they build up this. The war starts pretty much, and then what happens is Germany invades all these areas, and the United States stays out of it until December 7th. Japan attacks Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, and then the United States declare wars on Japan, and then Germany and Italy actually declare war on the United States. So it wasn't actually Germany it was Germany that declared war after Japan. So why did World War II actually happen? Germany being punished too harshly after World War One. Germany during World War One was actually very close to having a war that they didn't lose. Germany was very, 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 very close to having a draw, but they lost at the last minute because America got in. So they were punished harshly for losing the war. A lot of Germans didn't like that. So number 2 is a lack of land and food for Germany, Japan, and Italy. They were running out of food, so it caused a huge problem for people, especially these people that were after a war, and there was a lot of problems. And the Axis powers feel like they could have done whatever they wanted because no one stopped them. France and Great Britain actually bribed Germany with land to have them stop being violent, and it didn't actually teach them anything. So those are all the reasons why World War II happened. Without that, there would be no Holocaust. So please do keep that in mind. Thank you for watching.